Do you like mysteries? Well, if you do, the Netflix Italian period piece, The Law According to Lidia Poet, might be a series you want to check out. Forbidden from practicing law, a woman prepares an appeal to overturn the court's decision in this reinterpretation of the true story of Lidia Poet, Italy's first female lawyer. So the 6-episode season works twofold. There's a larger story arc that follows Lidia Poet as she starts off as a lawyer and then has her ability to practice law revoked, and she's working towards that appeal. The other is a series of mysteries that come about as cases, typically with clients who are accused of murder. Lydia's incredibly intelligent and observant, typically honing in on details and items that most miss. She also has some great intuition where her hunches typically pay off. And she's also very charismatic, especially because she isn't easily intimidated, so when she interacts with people, we can see her wit and wisdom shine. For the mystery portion of this series, they're more lighthearted or less complex than other hardcore mystery shows. I mean, this is more along the lines of Murder, She Wrote or CSI than it is a David Fincher story. But that doesn't mean that the stories aren't intriguing or even fun to engage with. And most of that is because of Lidia and her interactions. Her older brother is an attorney, and when she loses her ability to practice law, she begins to assist him, even though she's really the one doing all the work. She investigates, interviews, and puts the pieces together in order to solve the crime and hopefully exonerate the client. Now, the dynamic between she and her brother, it's snarky and antagonistic at times, but also humorous and even endearing. They're gruff to each other, both bringing in baggage from their childhood that then gets in the way of their current relationship. I do like that we get to see growth in both characters over the season, helping them not to be static characters, but instead ones that learn and mature. There's a complication to Lydia's circumstance that adds a lot of story intrigue for her larger arc, but it also provides some good story depth and interest in the individual cases. Her sister-in-law's brother, follow that? It's somebody Lidia doesn't want to necessarily rely on, but he has access that she doesn't, so they become sort of a team for the cases. Now, I enjoyed their interactions because there's a lot of tension that exists, and they play it off in a very captivating way. Now, something that also makes this an engaging show is because of how liberated Lidia is. She's not conforming to the oppressive standards of her surroundings. She's in conflict with more of the traditional viewpoints when it comes to women. And this even has ramifications in the house she's staying at. And the strained conversations that take place, they're sometimes uncomfortable and biting, but also funny and realistic too. She's an influential character, and that rubs off on those around her, leading to complications that help to make the story richer and less surfacey. Matilda De Angelis stars as Lidia, and she excels in the role. Now for me, she's able to be assertive, confident, inquisitive, and witty without ever feeling like the show is pushing some sort of agenda. What it's really doing is highlighting a historical figure and infusing some dramatic license around the situations to make them engaging for television rather than being a documentary that's purely informative. De Angelis is a great lead in this, and she commands her scenes while still allowing her co-stars to not fall into the background. Now, as far as the mystery elements are concerned, I've already mentioned that they're easy and they're fairly simple cases. But the real crux of the show is what's going on in Lydia's life and her surroundings, where a larger and potentially more dangerous mystery is unfolding, and it's one that she could become entangled in. And because this reaches across many of the episodes, its intrigue is drawn out more. But it has a more lasting impression because it involves characters and situations that are with the show from the beginning rather than just being a guest star type of scenario where a character is just the case of the week. Now, this is filmed really well, and the costumes and set designs, I think they're amazing. It certainly feels like we've been transported to the late 1800s, and while the show exquisitely captures the opulence and the prestige of the upper class, the show also does a wonderful job at showcasing the dirtier and seedier side of the city, where things aren't as polished and clean, but instead they're filthy, unwashed, and more often than not, missing a few teeth. Now, the way these two worlds collide and intermingle, it's intriguing, especially because only one side has an issue with coming in contact with the other, at least publicly. Each of the episodes in this is around 45-ish minutes, so it is a pretty quick binge. And because the characters are charismatic and the cases aren't incredibly involved or complex, this is a very easy binge also. Now, I find myself hooked on the characters and the larger narrative, and that kept me wanting to see more, so I binged it in an afternoon. That short binge time, though, it can leave you a bit unsatisfied because I wasn't ready for it to end. I wanted more, even though the story uses its time efficiently to tell the story. I'm glad it's not drawn out with scenarios that are unnecessary and filler. Instead, the storytelling's tight, which then gets us through faster. And I like that there's a possibility for more within this story, especially because I don't feel Lydia's larger story arc is anywhere near complete. This was a great introduction to her and her abilities, which creates a character to root for amidst the injustice that she's facing. Now, I don't think there's anything that is groundbreaking in the production or the storytelling, but it is enjoyable to take in. The music is great, inserting a modern flair into the period piece, and while the centuries don't match between the audio and the imagery, the feeling that's created works well and it enhances the mood of the episode. And that's not to say that it makes it happier, just more effective in complementing the feeling that's been established by the story at any particular moment. Overall, I think The Law According to Lidia Poët is an engaging and fun light mystery that's held together by a charismatic lead who has an intriguing backstory of her own. While the individual cases she tackles may not be overly complex, they're presented in an entertaining manner full of wit and smarts. The pacing is excellent, as are the costume designs, creating a world that's enveloping and enjoyable. Now, I hope the series continues to allow us into Poet's world more, giving us insight into a historical figure while wrapping her world in a dramatized container. There's a lot of sex and nudity, some profanity, and some violence. I give The Law According to Lidia Poët 3.5 out of 5 couches. So have you seen any great non-English series lately that you can recommend? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.